Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 360, Who's Flying Now? The episode begins with Ash and the gang now climbing the stairs towards the Fortree City gym, so that Ash could challenge the Fortree City gym leader. Yeah, that's right. They were now at Fortree City. Ash was so excited to battle that he immediately ran to the staircase where the gym was located at the top. They were running past the rest of the city, not even paying any attention to it. Although May and Max complained about being worn out doing so much climbing. Although Max was alright with being tired, reminding himself that he would at least get to see another cool gym battle once they got to the top of the stairs. To give himself some further motivation to make it to the top, Max turned around and commented on how great the view was, seeing all of Fortree City behind them. And May turned around and gave herself her motivation by looking at Fortree City as well. Brock and Ash didn't want to miss out on this view, so as they continued on, they looked back. And they all admired Fortree City, which had an abundance of tree houses, and that was everyone's primary residence, houses and trees, with Brock stating that it was an old tradition in the city, which he found out after reading from his guidebook, adding that there wasn't a single building in the city that wasn't a treehouse. As Max commented that a city in the trees was really cool, Ash, on the other hand, didn't think so. He took a quick glance at the city when he looked back, but that was it. He immediately started to focus entirely on climbing the steps once again, because he wanted to make it to his gym battle as soon as possible. No distractions. Ash then speeds up the stairs, leaving the others behind, as Max tries his best to follow, and Brock laughs, exclaiming that Ash always had battles on the brain. May sighed, wishing that she had an elevator to take her up the rest of the way, but slowly followed regardless. Brock followed as well, and eventually the whole gang made it to the top of the stairs where the gym doors were, and Ash and the gang admired a Skarmory statue to the right of them, while a Charizard statue was on the left. Ash, just like with the tree houses though, didn't admire these statues for long, and called inside the gym, declaring that he would like a match. A short brown-haired man, the gym assistant, greeted Ash, having heard his request, and Ash formally introduced himself, admitting that he was at the gym to challenge the gym leader. The gym assistant introduced himself as Zachary, and unfortunately informs Ash that the gym leader was not at the gym right now. Apologizing on the gym leader's behalf for this, Ash asked where the gym leader was, leading Zachary to admit that the gym leader was in Fortree City attending the annual Feather Carnival, adding that the gym leader was very busy. Max was curious as to what the Feather Carnival was, leading Zachary to explain that the Feather Carnival was a long-standing tradition in Fortree City, and every year it took place to celebrate flying Pokémon and their bond with the city, basically explaining that without flying Pokémon, then the city couldn't get by. And apparently, the carnival also just celebrated the sky itself, since flying Pokémon depended on the sky. Me and Max were intrigued by this carnival and thought it sounded cool, but Ash, just like with everything else in this goddamn city, wasn't very interested and immediately turned around and rushed back down the stairs. May asked where Ash was going, leading Ash to confirm that he was simply just going to go to the carnival to find the gym leader. May was against this idea, as she didn't want to go down the steps that she just fucking scaled, but Brock argued back that it was good training, adding that they were going to get extra good training, since once they found the gym leader at the carnival, they'd have to even go back up the stairs again. Max then points out that Ash was already well on his way down the stairs, and suggested that the rest of them follow him, as he made a joke about how fucking fast Ash was, especially in comparison to the rest of the gang, because Ash had made it to the bottom of the stairs, as May, Brock, and Max were still following slowly. Eventually, Ash and the gang had made it down to the main area of Fortree City, where the carnival was going on, and there was plenty of food and souvenir stands run by various people, including a delicious-looking hot dog stand. May and Max claimed that they wanted to shop for some supplies, when in reality they just wanted to shop for some food and souvenirs, although Brock stopped them, stating that he had something more important to do, which was scope out the eye candy, which was his way of talking about girls. He basically just wanted to spend all his time not shopping, but looking at a lot of the girls which were at the carnival, and he noted that basically all of them were beautiful. Ash got annoyed by Brock's simping and put a stop to it by grabbing him by the ear, just as Max usually would, saying that they weren't looking for any goddamn girls. The only one they had to look for was the gym leader, reminding Brock of the importance of this, as Max then laughed, noting that Ash did what he usually did. However, Max's attention was then caught by something in the sky, as he rushed over to the Fortree City Square to get a closer look at it. As Max got closer to the square, he pointed out what he saw to the rest of the gang, and they all looked up to see a woman in a blue pilot outfit with long purple hair, flying a child around with the child in front, and they were flying on a huge-ass Skarmory. Ash came to the conclusion that the Skarmory was probably the woman's, and May noted that the two people on Skarmory seemed to really be enjoying themselves, riding on its back. Max simply thought that Skarmory was cool, and Ash wondered if perhaps this woman was the gym leader, the woman who owned the Skarmory anyways, because he figured that someone who owned such a huge Skarmory could definitely be a gym leader. Brock, on the other hand, was immensely attracted to this woman, and just wanted her to fly down directly into his arms. Skarmory then flies directly over Ash and the gang, as they overhear the woman talking to the kid, asking if the kid was enjoying the ride, and obviously, the kid was. Ash and the gang decided to follow the Skarmory, and they would stop in front of it when it landed, primarily so Ash could talk to the woman, hoping that she was the gym leader. And they also just wanted to see how the Skarmory would land in general, due to being so huge. So they saw that Skarmory was landing deeper in the town square, so that's where they went. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they also had arrived in Fortree City, and they seemed to be enjoying the carnival. Well, Meowth and Jessie were anyways, as Jessie was happily munching on a hamburger and cotton candy while they went over to the next food stand to buy some more food, while Meowth had a soda and a corn dog. As for James, though, he was not nearly as happy as Jessie and Meowth, and actually seemed a bit depressed, sighing because of this depression, making Jessie annoyed, as she just wanted to enjoy the goddamn carnival, but James was being a party pooper. Meowth was annoyed as well, and asked James why he was so depressed. James simply replied that he didn't like carnivals, although Jessie couldn't fathom why anyone would hate such a fun event like a carnival, leading James to explain how his hatred for carnivals went way back to when he was just a young boy, and we then see a flashback of this. Basically, when James was just a little boy, his parents drove their limo, because they were rich, through a carnival that was near James's mansion, and James would always peer out the window at all the stands and become depressed at the fact that his parents would never let him go to one, and became depressed even more when he saw something really interesting that he wanted, but his parents simply continued to drive their limo through the carnival, and it didn't stop. Just then, Jessie and Meowth interrupted James' story, claiming they were bored. It was a boring story, and they also said that they didn't have any sympathy for James not getting this thing that he wanted from the carnival, because they figured that he already had everything that he could have possibly wanted at home, because he was so fucking rich. Although, James just ignored Jessie and Meowth, and continued to tell his story. He exclaimed that the next day, the carnival was still in town, and James' parents drove by in the limo again, so James got to have another look at the carnival. But this time, he didn't see the item that he was interested in before. Instead, he saw a stand that was selling a very cute Pokemon, Chimecho, that he fell in love with. Not sexually, but, he really liked it. And he confirmed that this was the first Pokemon he ever fell in love with and really wanted, adding that he particularly loved it so much because of its really soft voice that he heard. Although, unfortunately, when he asked his parents to buy it for him, his parents refused, so that same night, when he came back to his mansion, he snuck out with his Igglybuff piggy bank to buy it, having enough money to buy it for sure in his piggy bank. But despite James' excitement to pick up the Pokemon that he loved and make it his own, much to his dismay, when he arrived, he found that the carnival was packing up, and they had already packed up the Chimecho stand. So he snuck out of the mansion during the middle of the night for no real reason. The flashback then ends as James whines that this whole incident with Chimecho left him a hollow shell of a man, and he begins to burst into tears, still really wanting Chimecho, and exclaiming that it's all because of the carnival's dumb migrations, where they had to go to different areas, that caused him to lose his chance at getting the Pokemon he loved. However, James soon cut himself off when he was complaining, when he realized that Jessie and Meowth had actually ran off when he was talking, being extremely bored by what he said, and he wondered where they went. James couldn't figure it out, and he just got more depressed at the fact that he had poured his heart out, and no one had actually listened, although everyone in the carnival was hearing him cry at least. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang had followed the Skarmory to the very center of the town square, and the kid that was on the Skarmory got off and thanked the woman for the absolute joyride. Now that ride was over, the woman and her Skarmory were asking all the kids who had gathered around in the square who wanted to be the next one to ride, and expected that she may have trouble picking. Just then, a small little girl raised her hand and indicated that she wanted to ride, so the woman selected the girl and introduced herself as Nimona and placed the girl on her Skarmory as she was about to get on as well, assuring a boy that he could ride next, as a random boy also wanted to go on. Just then, though, before Winona could board Skarmory, Brock randomly walked up to her and started to flirt with her, explaining about his profession as a Pokemon breeder, getting all up in her face. To be polite, Winona listened to Brock's little explanation and his flirting, but was spared of more of it when Max took action and pulled Brock away by the ear. With Brock dealt with, Ash and May come up to Winona, and May instantly asks Winona if she could have a ride on Skarmory, but all of the kids, especially 3 in particular, a girl and 2 boys, get bitchy at this, starting to call dibs, saying that they deserve to go on a ride before May did, and one boy tries to gas Winona up to let him go on first, saying that Winona was the nicest cheerleader there was. Winona blushed at the kids' compliments, but Ash got excited as he now knew that Winona was the gym leader, and explained that he came from far away to challenge the Fortree City gym leader for his 6th Hoenn Gym badge, and requests that they battle. Introducing himself as Ash, Winona was a bit caught off guard by Ash's sudden request and excitement, but she does in fact confirm herself as Winona, the gym leader, but explains that she was not currently holding matches at this time, but would battle him after the carnival. Even though Ash could go for a battle immediately, he thanks Winona for accepting his challenge period, and Winona nods as she returns to her Skarmory and starts to fly the little girl that she promised around. As Brock saw Winona fly in the air, he managed to recover from Max's pulling and commented that Winona was like an angel. May, however, wasn't really amazed with Winona, just Skarmory, and really wanted to ride it still. Ash tells May that she may be able to, eventually, especially because they were going to be at the carnival for a while, since they were going to be at the carnival till it was done, so Ash could battle Winona, and he suggests that they might as well let their Pokemon out to enjoy the carnival as well. May liked this idea, and released all of her Pokemon first, Combuskin, Bulbasaur, Beautyfly, and Skitty, and Brock and Ash followed, with Brock releasing Fortress, Lombre, and Mudkip, and Ash releasing Pikachu, of course, who was already released, Torkoal, Corphish, Grovyle, and Swellow. All the Pokemon then begin to play some games at the carnival for a while. some of them ride some rising Pokemon machines, like, the ones that were kind of like a merry-go-round, and they go around in a little circle or whatever. Yeah, there were some Hoppip, Skiploom, Jumpluff, and Masquerade machines that you could ride. There were some other Pokemon and trainers that were tossing yellow balls into a Pelipper's mouth, and there were quite a few other rides as well, such as one known as the Haunted Flight, which was a ride where Golbats pull a basket through a haunted forest. Meanwhile, Jessie and Meowth were still immensely enjoying the carnival, with Jessie eating 2 whole cones of ice cream, and Meowth eating some delicacy of some sort, along with a popsicle. Of course, they were separated from James since they left him, and the two of them were taking the opportunity to immensely make fun of James for his obsession over Chimecho, stating that James probably wanted Chimecho so much that it would never appear again. But since they were so busy chowing down on food, they hadn't noticed that a Chimecho was actually floating happily right by them as it watches the carnival. We then see some of Ash's Pokemon, Brock's Pokemon, and May's Pokemon riding the rides at the carnival, such as Corphish, Combuskin, and Fortress riding the merry-go-round, and Skitty, Mudkip, Pikachu, and Torkoal doing so as well. During this, Max was actually getting a turn riding with Skarmory, as he wanted to as well. He remarked that he found it really interesting what it was like to fly on Pokemon. Eventually, it was finally May's turn, and she was very, very excited as she waved down to Ash and the gang, amazed at her first time riding a flying Pokemon, although Winona asks if she would like to speed up, and May gratefully accepts, and really enjoyed how fast Skarmory was going. Ash and Brock were watching this from the ground, and Ash commented on how much fun it looked like May was having. Brock commented that it was obvious from all of the kids wanting to ride Skarmory that Fortress City's residents had respect for the sky and commemorated with everyone having flying Pokemon and holding this carnival. He basically saw that what Zachary said was true. Brock also comments that Winona was likely a genius among flying-type trainers due to being able to catch a really huge Skarmory, and warns Ash that he may have a difficult time challenging Winona, since she probably used her love of flying-type Pokemon to her advantage in battle, suggesting that she was used to flying Pokemon and how they acted because she lived among them by living in the trees in one of the tree houses, and also, as for the battle itself, she would likely use the flying Pokemon to her advantage by focusing on their immense speed. Ash wasn't worried though, assuring Brock that even if Winona had a bond with flying-type Pokemon, he had a bond with his Pokemon that could rival hers, and also states that he wanted to be the strongest trainer in the world, and if he wanted to be the strongest trainer in the world, he had to beat strong trainers on his way to that goal. So, if Winona was strong, that just helped him with his goal in the long run. And he then turned his attention to trying to think of what Pokemon Winona would use during the gym battle that wasn't Skarmory. Meanwhile, Pikachu, Skitty, and Swallow were now in the midst of taking a ride on the Haunted Flight, and they were scared by the many ghost Pokemon on the flight, such as Duskull, Dusclops, and Gengar. However, Skitty doesn't seem scared whatsoever, just Pikachu and Swallow were. And Skitty actually seemed to be enjoying the ghost Pokemon. Meanwhile, James walked through the carnival, cursing Jessie and Meowth for ditching him, when suddenly he heard something chime, and turned one way to see several weird-looking Chimecho in a stand. James didn't even pay attention to the fact that the Chimecho looked kind of weird. He was just so desperate to get one, and that's all his mind could think about now. He completely forgot about Jessie and Meowth abandoning him. He just needed a goddamn Chimecho, and luckily for him, he saw that there was a person selling the Chimecho. So he approached the salesman, who was actually the Magikarp salesman, although James didn't even realize at first. That's right, he's already returned. But anyways, the Magikarp salesman just did his usual spiel, asking James to buy something, although this time it was a Chimecho. James was initially believing that everything the salesman said was true, and he really just wanted him to buy a Chimecho. But just then, though, James notices a whole bunch of duct tape on the Chimecho, and almost like fake limbs on the Chimecho as well, and believed that there was something off about these Chimecho, or something off about the seller anyways, and he got flashbacks to his time with the Magikarp salesman, not knowing that this guy actually was the Magikarp salesman. The Magikarp salesman sensed James's PTSD flashbacks to his past experiences with him, but the salesman assures James that it was a real Chimecho, and he handed one to James, and apparently, the way that the salesman handed Chimecho to him was enough to fully convince James that the Magikarp salesman was in fact the Magikarp salesman, and he started to yell at him, reminding him of the whole fake feedback situation from the Spoink episode, and accusing the salesman of trying to swindle him again. But the salesman assures James that Chimecho was real, bending down, assuring and pleading to James that he would not do any swindling anymore, and he used the same excuse that he really needed the money for his wife and kids, including his little baby. James wasn't falling for the salesman's tricks this time, and shoved the Chimecho, or what he believed to be a fake Chimecho, back in the salesman's face. Although the salesman simply came right up into James's face and shoved the Chimecho back in his face and asked him questions about it. This was able to distract James, since he went on and on about how awesome Chimecho was and all that shit. And the salesman tries to gas Chimecho up some more to take advantage of how much James loved Chimecho, stating that Chimecho was actually the #1 home Pokemon, and sure enough, James was intrigued by this. And the salesman also stated that Chimecho's soft and beautiful tail could be used to soothe him, as well as be used as a scarf to keep him warm. The salesman also adds that Chimecho had lovely eyes, and the tail could even double as a fan as well. And the salesman adds one more piece of knowledge that seals the deal, which was that Chimecho can also bring happiness and luck to its trainer, although he whispered this, emphasizing that was a very important part of Chimecho's lore. James was very intrigued by the fact that Chimecho could spread happiness, as he imagined himself being promoted to the boss of Team Rocket, and he was now set on buying the Chimecho as he officially made the purchase, and grabbed it into his arms, leaving the Magikarp salesman very happy with the sale, cheering and thanking James. Unfortunately, in return for the Chimecho, James obviously had to pay some money, and he happened to pay the last bit of Team Rocket's money that they had saved up. But regardless, James was happy as he walked around with his new Chimecho, thinking that it would bring him success and happiness. Soon after this, Jessie and Meowth located James, and immediately saw him hugging his new Pokemon. Meowth was curious what kind of Pokemon it was, and James held it up to them and let them examine it, admitting that it was a Chimecho, and expressed that he was very happy with it. As Meowth was eating some popcorn and Jessie was eating a hot dog, Meowth remarked that he thought there was something wrong with the Chimecho, as it wasn't really making any sounds that a Chimecho usually made. James counters that Chimecho just needed a reason to speak, and he rubs it to try and get it to relax, and after this, Chimecho sings, giving off a soothing chime sound. Meowth, however, wasn't convinced, stating that he just heard a bell, not a usual Chimecho cry, and Jessie started to see that Meowth may have had a point, and wondered if that singing was actually the voice of an actual Chimecho. Then Jessie took notice of all the tape on Chimecho, and wondered why Chimecho had all this tape, trying to inspect it to find out why. Although suddenly, the tape on the back of Chimecho starts to fall off, and two pointy leaves pop up on its head. Followed by this, the tail that was placed on the quote-unquote Chimecho falls off, which was revealed to actually be a bell. So basically, a bell had been attached to this now confirmed as fake Chimecho to make a sound kind of similar to it. With the tape removed, James, still believing it was actually a Chimecho, thought that it might have been shedding its skin, so decided to rub it with a rag to hopefully try and make it more comfortable while it shedded its skin. But with the tape now off, as soon as James rubbed it with a rag, it revealed that the quote-unquote Chimecho was actually painted, and all this paint came off to reveal it as actually a Hoppip. James freaks out in shock as he lets go of Hoppip, allowing it to float away, although he didn't care at all, and he just started to cry now that he no longer had a Chimecho, and realized that he never had a Chimecho to begin with. Jessie was annoyed by James's blunder and his crying, although she then realized that she should probably question how much James spent on the Chimecho after James had explained that he had gotten scammed once again. Once James revealed that he had spent the remainder of Team Rocket's savings on Chimecho, James got Jessie extremely pissed off, and she started to beat up James. During all of this, the Hoppip just continued to happily float away, as there was a massive breeze. Suddenly, though, with this breeze, a real Chimecho came out of nowhere and hovered up to Team Rocket, with Meowth identifying it as a real Chimecho this time. And this was proved when the Chimecho let out a soothing chime while saying its name, and this instantly put Team Rocket in a mental heaven because the sound was so beautiful, and they begged it to make the sound again, and it obliged, putting them in heaven once more. James really wanted this Chimecho now, with Meowth stating that Chimecho had likely shown up since it likes attending carnivals. Much to James's joy, when he approached it and asked it if it wanted to be his new Pokemon, the Chimecho smiled and wrapped its tail around James's head, binding him, blocking his vision. Man, it seemed like every single one of James' Pokemon liked to fuck with him in some way. At first, James was angered by Chimecho fucking with him, but at the end of the day, he calmed down, just simply cheering that he had a Chimecho, and he was happy with this. Jessie and Meowth were both shocked that James was able to get Chimecho on their side very easily, though they didn't really see how it could be useful in battle against Ash and the gang. They thought really all it could do was put them back in a heaven-like state. Regardless of this, Jessie simply just advised Meowth to not focus too much on the Chimecho, same with James, and simply focus on their plan. As Meowth and James questioned what this plan even was. Meowth just thought they'd come to this festival to enjoy it, but Jessie claimed that they had come to this festival/carnival to steal all the Pokemon. James agreed with this plan, as Chimecho continued to show its love to James by blinding him. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, Winona had finished everything she had to do for the carnival, so she agreed to battle Ash now. So she escorted Ash, Brock, and Max and May up the stairs to her gym once again, and they arrived at the spot with the Starmie and Charizard statues where Zachary was. And after this, Zachary joined Winona and Ash and the gang as they all walked up some more steps to the actual battlefield of the Four-Tree Gym, which was an open area on top of the gym, on level with the surrounding trees. Basically, it was a battlefield that was basically in the air, and Brock remarked how it was the perfect place for flying Pokemon to battle. Winona confirmed that the battlefield would be the site of the battle, and told Ash to take his place, and he very excitedly started to, when suddenly he was stopped, when startled, when he and Winona and the rest of the gang heard an explosion in the distance, and they looked down to see the explosion coming from the Four-Tree City square, as there was a whole bunch of visible smoke and electricity down in the square. Winona immediately calls off the battle for the time being, and hops on her Skarmory, which she sent out, and flies towards the explosion. Ash suggested to the gang that they should help her out, and they rushed after Winona, going down the stairs that they had just worked so hard to climb up, much to their dismay, but they knew they had to help. We then see that the explosion and electricity was being caused by Team Rocket in the new Double Trouble Sparky Shooter mech that used electricity to knock out and capture all of Four-Tree City's famous strong flying Pokemon. Basically, since the flying Pokemon were weak to electricity, the electricity paralyzed them and prevented them from moving, so that Team Rocket could easily scoop them up into the mech. And they also shot out the electricity in the first place by using special cannons that were mounted onto the mech. Team Rocket happened to be currently capturing a Pelipper and some Golbats, throwing them into a basket on the mech's back. When suddenly, right as Team Rocket was about to try and capture Skiploom, as well as a jump bluff, Winona and her Skarmory suddenly arrived and hit the mech with a steel wing, pushing it back. Jessie was furious and asked Winona who the fuck she thought she was, messing with Team Rocket, leading Winona to introduce herself as the gym leader of Fort Tree City, so she felt responsible to take action. And she then asked who the fuck Team Rocket even were, leading Team Rocket to do their motto. Ash and the gang showed up when Team Rocket was doing their motto, and they were shocked to see James's Chimecho, not realizing that James had caught a new Pokemon until James officially called it his. Ash quickly scanned Chimecho with his Pokedex, with May looking at Ash's Pokedex because she was curious about Chimecho as well, and demanded that Team Rocket release all the captured Pokemon, but Team Rocket refused. So Ash knew he would have to battle Team Rocket. Pikachu had followed Ash and the gang by riding on Swellow to make it easier for it to go down and catch up, and it also wanted to be on level ground with Skarmory and Winona. And once Pikachu was on Swellow, Ash had to use Thunderbolt on Team Rocket's mech. Thunderbolt does do its usual damage, absolutely frying Team Rocket, but much to Ash and the gang's shock, Chimecho then uses his special move, Heal Bell, to cure Team Rocket's wounds and bring them back to a heavenly state again. Meowth happily remarked that they could no longer be hurt by simple electric attacks, and James started to hug Chimecho, thanking it for its help, which caused Chimecho to show its affection for James by wrapping its tail on his eyes again, blinding him. Ash then tries a different strategy, knowing that pure electric attacks wouldn't do much, and has Swellow charge in at Team Rocket's mech, with Pikachu still on its back, although Meowth just presses a switch on the mech to unleash a few electric blasts, but Swellow swiftly dodges them. Meowth just laughs this off, and laughs even more when he launches a third electric blast, and this one actually hits, damaging both Pikachu and Swellow. Winona, seeing that they were both injured, was about to help out with her Skarmory, but was very surprised when she saw that, with some encouragement from Ash, and kind words from Ash, Swellow was able to push through the electric blast, seemingly okay, and it charged up to the mech and struck it with a very tough wing attack. Amazing Winona as the machine was pushed back. However, Meowth didn't give up and released the most powerful electric blast yet, and this actually really wore out Swellow and Pikachu, to the point where neither of them could defend themselves, and they were quickly scooped onto the mech's back with all of the rest of the flying Pokemon in the basket. However, Winona took action now, and had Skarmory use Drill Peck to slice the basket on the mech right off, freeing the flying Pokemon, as they all fell out of the basket, along with Swellow and Pikachu. Team Rocket began to panic, knowing that they had to do something. James couldn't think of jack shit, leading Jessie to suggest James to have Chimecho use Heal Bell, but James reminded Jessie that it would do nothing since they were already healthy. Meowth then tried to get James to tell Chimecho to use Double Edge, but James couldn't because he reminded Meowth that Chimecho couldn't learn Double Edge. Since Team Rocket couldn't think of anything, Skarmory took the opportunity to smash right through the mech with another Drill Peck coming out of the other side. The mech was so damaged that it ended up exploding and short-circuiting, blasting Team Rocket off. As Team Rocket blasts off, Wobbuffet forcibly pops out his Pokeball, and James panics because he couldn't find Chimecho. But suddenly, Chimecho gets blasted off with them as well. Meowth then scolds James for not having Chimecho use Double Edge, but James reminded Meowth once again that Chimecho couldn't learn Double Edge, and it was too dangerous for a Pokemon as gentle as Chimecho to use. The argument was then stopped as Team Rocket was healed and put in a heaven-like trance by Chimecho using Heal Bell, although they were still blasted off, so they couldn't recover. Like, they couldn't go back and steal the Pokemon or anything. With Team Rocket gone, all the flying Pokemon were freed, and they returned out into the wild as Winona flew down on her Skarmory and jumped off of it, and Swellow and Pikachu flew down as well. May and Max instantly complimented Winona and Skarmory, and Winona thanked them for the compliment and then apologized to Ash, stating that she felt bad for their battle being cut off, but unfortunately they couldn't battle right now either, since she figured that both Ash's Pokemon and her Skarmory were too tired out to battle, so she suggested that they battle tomorrow instead, and Ash accepted this, understanding that it was probably for the best, so that his Pokemon could fight at their best. Winona confessed that there was actually another reason why she didn't want to battle today, which was that it was getting late, and that meant the end of the carnival was coming, and she actually had a part to play at the end of the carnival. So, with that, Winona and Ash and the gang returned to the Fort Tree City Square as the sun set and the moon came out, and the final act of the Feather Carnival began, which was some fireworks and a display of formation flying, with Winona and her Skarmory leading, followed by a Pidgeot, Fearow, Zubat, Golbat, Noctowl, Skiploom, Jumpluff, Murkrow, Wingull, Swablu, Hoppip, and Pelipper. While watching, Ash talked to the gang about how excited he was for his 6th gym battle tomorrow, and May asked Ash if he was confident he could beat Winona. Ash stated that he was, but admitted that Winona seemed strong, so it could definitely be a challenge. But regardless of the challenge, he promised to do his absolute best to defeat her and obtain his 6th home gym badge.